Hello class. In this video I want to talk about the layers of AutoCAD you use to draw in elevation because it's a little tricky just because we have to switch gears a little bit from plan to elevation. And the key to using layers in AutoCAD, one of the primary features is to get the line weights correct. So I've zoomed in on this PDF to show you what I mean. We can see something like the ground plane here is very thick. The columns are thicker line weight than say the siding or this window back here or this edge of the wall that's back here in the background. And I'll quickly review the reasons of how you choose that. Um, in in but I want to show you the layers in AutoCAD first here, because the biggest difference between drawing in plan and in elevation, and this is typical across many firms, it's fairly well standardized. When you draw floor plans, I'm going to open up our layer box here. We use a lot of layers like A floor, case, A floor handrail, A floor level change, A floor stairs. That's floor. That floor means floor plan. Right, and usually in a floor plan, a thing at a specific elevation is the right line weight. But in elevation, that's not the case, because one of the things about an elevation is something that's closer to you is darker, and something that's further away is lighter in line weight. And so if I pull this drawing up again, we can sort of see that this surface, this wall, is closer to me, so it's got a thicker line weight than this wall over here, so it's got a thinner line weight. So I can't use wall, because I need two different line weights for that wall. So when you're drawing in elevations and sections and details, a lot of people, or most people, use a different set of layers. And a very good way of doing it, there's lots of variations on this, but a very sort of common theme is to use these A color 01, A color 02, A color 03, so on and so forth. With these line weights, the color, the red, the line weight's going to be the same as anything that's red in plan, say handrail, or anything that's yellow is going to be the same as yellow in plan, but it's more flexible, so it doesn't mean a specific thing. So it's generic. So for elevations, when you're drawing your elevations, I want you to use these layers. If wall layer shows up, if door layer shows up, if you draw your windows on the window layer or glazing layer, I'm going to send it back for you to redo it. Not going to count it or take points off, whatever method is being used to grade in this class. All right, so you have to use these elevations when drawing the layer. So a lot of times I'll usually pick a basic layer to start from, like a mid layer color, so maybe like color 3 I might start with, and it's along the way, if some things are darker, I'll make them darker. If some things are lighter, I'll make them lighter. As I draw, a lot of times I might just make choices near the end, so you'll hear me talking specifics about layer as we move forward. But I just want to make some quick points. The thickest line weight, and again in this layer list, it goes from thinnest to red to darkest down at the bottom. But generally, and this is true for all drawings, if you cut through something, it's the thickest line weight. Like a floor plan, the wall is the thickest line weight because you cut through it, you remove the upper part, you look down. In an elevation, the same is true. Now you might be saying, hey, what are you cutting through in an elevation? Well, what you're cutting through is the earth, because you're standing outside the building and you cut through the ground. So you're cutting through this line right down here. Right? So that cut line is the thickest in elevation. And then the rules are, so basically the big rule is, as I sort of mentioned earlier, things that are closest to you is darker, things that are further away is lighter. Well, the cut line is as close as you can get in a drawing like this, so it's immediately 0 inches away from you. Then things, as I step back further, they get lighter and lighter and lighter. So that's one way to choose layers, or really line weights, for an elevation. Another choice that is often made is things that are internal to something else are lighter line weights. So you accentuate edges just for clarity purposes. So in this elevation, for example, you can see the edge of this house, of this face, this wall, or this wall surface right here, that's dark. Anything internal to that is lighter, including the windows. Even though this line, this line, this line, this line, and all these lines are basically the same distance away from me in the elevation, I highlight the edge to make them darker. The same, although it's difficult here, you might highlight slightly the edge of the windows, lighter than this thickness, but slight edge to just say, hey, that's something going on there. Just edges, important edges, can be highlighted as well. Sometimes you run out of line weights because you just don't have enough to use. In AutoCAD, it's easy to almost make an infinite amount of line weights. The reality is the eye doesn't see various changes. So when you get to something that's further away, like here in the back, you might not have very many changes in line weights. You don't have the opportunity, perhaps, to highlight the edges as much as you want, but that is okay. when you do layers and floor plans, there are absolutely right answers, there are absolutely wrong answers. When you get to things like elevations, there are some right answers, like when you cut through the ground plane, that has to be dark. But when you're making a decision like, should this window edge be color 3 or 4, there's not a one or right wrong answer there. It's personal preference. It's choices is relating to the building. So I won't, when I'm looking at it, I won't say it has to absolutely be this. The general principles have to apply. Things that are closer to you are darker, edges are darker, and so on and so forth. But you do have some wiggle room when drawing in elevations. That said, I'm going to one more time jump over to the finished version of this drawing. And show you this, and I'm just going to let you look at it, because based on color you can pretty much tell what layers we drew things on for this drawing. So go ahead, if you want to pause this video or whatever you might want to do, you can go and take notes, and I'll even zoom in a little bit on it so you can see a little bit more detail of it as clues, because I want to make sure you draw them right. So I'm not trying to hide what layers you draw them on, but at the same time there are, a reasonable person could have made slight variations from what was chosen here. So here's a good guide. You can always go back to this view if you want to look. But of course, I'll be drawing more of this elevation in the following videos. In fact, I will draw probably most of this elevation for you, probably a little bit less of the second one, let you do that on your own. In the next video, I promise I will start drawing.